during the roll. Yeah, I let her know last week, so.
I'm ready.
Recording in progress.
Okay. Let's start then. Calling the meeting of the Design Review Board and Tree Board to order for September 24th, 2024. An auspicious day, if I do say so myself. Would you like to do a roll call, John?
Yes, Board Member Diedler. Here. Board Member Bush.
Here.
Vice Chair Hanley.
Present, and I'll be using my AB 2449 Just Cause to participate in this meeting remotely.
Thank you. And Chair Lingberg.
Here.
All right, so we do have a quorum in person and with the remote participation from Vice Chair Hanley. And we do have two absent members today, Board Member Lovell and Board Member Balfe.
Great. Thank you. We have a whole slew of minutes to approve or to review and approve. The first goes back to November 28th last year. This was when we first looked at the bunya tree, but it actually didn't, because of the signage was not posted correctly. We didn't actually talk about it too much. So the three of us were a part of that, so we could go ahead and talk about those minutes. Anybody want to, any comments on those minutes? Anybody remembers them?
I remember them, and I have no comment. I would like to make a motion to approve them as written.
Thank you. Give it a second. Second. All right. All in favor?
All right, so
Roll
we
call.
have a motion by Board Member Bush, second by Board Member Diedler. Board Member Diedler,
Aye.
Board Member Bush,
Aye.
Vice Chair Hanley.
Aye.
She was not present there.
I was not present.
Oh,
Apologies.
okay.
Abstain.
And Chair Lingberg.
Aye.
All right, so those minutes pass with 3 ayes, 1 abstention, and 2 absence.
Okay, and then December 19th, we don't have a quorum to vote on that.
Okay, we'll move those to
Christine
the-
would have to be here for that.
Okay, so we'll move those to the next board meeting.
Okay, so then January 23rd was when we did talk about the bunya tree, and I was there, Melissa, Carrie, Lynn, so we can vote on that. Anybody like to make a motion on those minutes?
Sure. I'd also like to make a motion to approve the minutes as written.
Do we have a second?
I second.
Roll call.
All right, Board Member Diedler,
Aye.
Board Member Bush,
Aye.
Vice Chair Hanley,
Aye.
and Chair Lingberg.
Aye.
All right, so those minutes pass 4 ayes and 2 absence.
All right, then we move to July 23rd. I was not at that meeting, but, oh, sorry, I was, and Melissa and Carrie, we were talking about the Village Green, the tree removal at Village Green. So would one of you two like to make a motion on these?
Sure, I'd be glad to make a motion to approve the minutes as reported.
Melissa, would you second?
I would love to. I
Aye.
second that.
All right. Board Member Bush,
Aye.
Vice Chair Hanley,
Aye.
and Chair Lingberg.
Aye.
And so those minutes pass 3 ayes. Lynn was absent, I believe.
Correct. Yeah.
So 1 abstention and 2 absence for today's meeting.
Okay, and the last one is from August 27th of this year. I was absent, but the other 3 present here were there. Who would like to make a motion on this? This was for the sign at a couple sign, Hop Monk, Campanella.
Well, I had to abstain from 2 of the items on that.
Right.
So I don't know if I can.
And Carrie,
Opine.
you had to abstain from one.
I did as well. Yeah, for proximity. So how does that work?
That's a good question. Let's hold off on this one. We'll come back to it at next month's meeting, and I'll get confirmation from the city clerk on how we can handle those minutes.
So if Christine and Marshall came to that meeting as well as the rest of us, it wouldn't be a problem. We could have a quorum without those two,
Correct.
but
Yeah.
let us know about that.
Okay, we'll do.
Thank you, John.
And that was the August 27th.
August
meeting, correct?
27th, correct, yep. So that's our minutes part of the meeting. So item 4 is a planning department update. John and I spoke. Usually that's actually goes towards the end of the meeting, so we're going to move that. And so next we have comments from the public regarding items not on the agenda. Mariah, would you like to? Here's your chance. Come on up.
Yeah. So we'll follow like city council does. We'll do in the room first and then go out to Zoom and back and
Right.
forth until
Yep.
we're done.
May I approach the bench?
2 minutes.
I've been
Yes.
watching a lot of law shows. I just wanted to give you guys these as a reference. These are some of Patrick Amiot's benches he makes. Patrick and I have had a lot of conversations around different ideas, and one of them was having his benches downtown. He's got several of them in his backyard that aren't being utilized for the community. There's a grant I'm looking at right now. It's a T-Mobile $50,000 small town beautification grant. I've been working on it. Patrick is up to decorate the downtown with colorful artistic benches, if that was something that would be an option. At the visitor center, we get thousands of visitors coming through asking me, where do I go? What do I see? And I always send them to Florence, of course. If you go through the downtown of Sebastopol and the plaza, you wouldn't really know what an artistic community we have. It's sort of hidden back there. I think that it should be front and center in downtown Sebastopol and in the plaza, and I think these benches would be a good idea. Yes, the mermaid should have some covering, so that, that might be an issue, but he's willing to make new benches. And John recommended to me that I go to this downtown Main Street USA conference, and I went last Monday to Wednesday in Eureka, and I brought back so much interesting information. We learned about other main streets that have really revitalized and embraced what it is about their town that makes it unique, and it's relevant as you walk through the downtown, whatever that may be. Okay, that's all. I think that this is a neat idea. Some of you have been in this game a lot longer than I have. But if I walked through downtown Sebastopol and saw these benches, selfie benches, people posting them on social media, interactive, I think it would be great. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention today and would love to talk to you more about it. Thanks.
Great. Thank you so much. All right. Susie, are there anybody on Zoom for public comment? Doesn't seem like it. All I see is Melissa and the rest of us. We're good? Okay. Then we can move on to our regular agenda. What? Excuse me?
So it looks like you brought it back up again.
Okay. So there's somebody in Zoom land who has a public comment not about an item not on the agenda. I don't see anybody on the screen.
Hey, can you hear me?
Oh, I see it. Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead, Linda.
Okay. But anyway, that idea, the previously mentioned idea about the benches is excellent, and I have brought it up before. City Council Healdsburg has a bunch of really nice, great artistic benches throughout the town. But anyway, what I wanted to speak about is that you all need to start knowing more about what's going on in this town. You should know that up here near where I live, by the Redwood Marketplace, across the road from there, recently there was a hit and run, and it involved a man who was walking with his two young children who were on bicycles in the bicycle lane, right in the 800 block of Ravenstein Highway North, which is right exactly next to all of the 5, 6 RVs that are been there for months. It's by the RV Village. And anyway, that was a hit and run. And anyway, gist of what I'm saying is that this whole thing with the RV village and the homeless, the way we've been, the way they've been handled has been a disaster, both economically and socially. And I'm sorry to say, that they're they have been less than an asset to the community with a lot of theft. The economic thing, you need to find out. Come up here and walk the sidewalk next to their RVs,
30
which
seconds.
they treat as yards. But also there are 5 and 6 commercial spaces that have been vacant for years. And now the building that they're right next to, the police have been called because the owner called them their feces and urine as they're drug dealing, in the recessed entryway there. You need to find out what's going on in this town. And then at the same time, there's the half of our police our wonderful exemplary cops are spending half of their time in dealing with the homeless
2
people here.
minutes are up. Thank you.
And they're quitting too. We've had 3 of them that have voted with their feet. They don't like working here because they're badly mistreated and not appreciated, primarily by our stupid mayor. And so they have 3 of them have quit and gone to work for Rohnert Park. So I strongly encourage you all to find out. And the canopy project is going to make everything worse with the traffic. With 684 vehicle trips per day by their own estimate in the impact report. You need to become more active and find out what's going on in the city. And
Thanks, Linda. The time is up.
All right. Thanks for that, Linda. So we have no other public comment here in the room. Or anybody else on Zoom who would like to speak about an item not on our agenda today? All right. And we'll move along. Any statements of conflicts of interest from the board today? No? Okay. Then we'll move to our regular agenda items. The first one is design review of a sign proposal, 6700 Sebastopol Avenue for a new restaurant in the Barlow, Cock Robin. Would you like to give us a little report there?
Thank you. So yes, as you mentioned, this is a sign package for the Cock Robin restaurant at 6700 Sebastopol Avenue, which is located within the Barlow Marketplace. The project proposes to add new signage to the former Seismic Brewing restaurant. The applicants are proposing the following signage as part of the staff report. I'll list off them shortly here. One externally illuminated wall-mounted sign, and then 3 various non-illuminated wall mounting signs. They vary in square footage. One is 18.5 square feet, 26.5 square feet, 19.5 square feet. And then the large externally illuminated wall mounted sign is 136.75 square feet. The Barlow has a sign program in place that shows the demarcation and clearly marks this building as an anchor tenant, which is a tenant between 3,000 and 4,999 square feet of gross leasable area. Anchor tenants are allowed 75 square feet of signage on their primary business elevations, and they may increase their signage if they have more than 2 street frontages by 25%, which would bump that up to 93.75. As this signage that is before you today is an increase of that, they would be asking for an exception from the design review board, and per section 17.120.020 of the sign ordinance, replacement signs which are part of an approved sign program for a shopping center or multi-tenant building and which conform to said program, replacement signs which do not conform to the approved sign program are subject to the review of the design review board. So that's why we're here today. The exceptions that the board will be considering are the one wall-mounted sign of 136.75 square feet, which is in excess of 43 square feet of what they're totally allowed, and the 2 wall-mounted signs that are labeled burgers and chicken, respectively. Through the sign program, it is text only and not to explicitly call out certain types of things. So with that, I will conclude the report. I'm happy to answer any questions and then turn it over to the applicant who's participating on Zoom today.
Okay. Thank you, John. Any questions for staff today from the board?
Well, those signs are already up, including a pole sign.
Yes, I was made aware of the signage that did go up before this meeting last week. I did reach out to the applicants to let them know that we typically don't allow signage to be installed before an approval. And I did not get a response back from them. So the board can take that for what it's worth as part of their process today.
And do you have a package of what these signs look like so we can see it while we discuss this?
It's part of the, I can grab one of the packets that were sent to you.
Okay, I missed that then.
Or we could just walk down the road and talk about it down there.
It'd be good.
Yeah, it was there was actually a very nice package of drawings done, elevations, one kind of montage 3D view, site plan.
This is Michael from Scott AG. I was just going to say, is there any is there any way to show the package in the chambers there? Because I could bring it up on screen, or
Yeah, we'll go ahead and make you a co-host, Michael, and then you can share.
And while you're doing that, are there any other questions from the board for staff today? Melissa or Carrie?
I don't have any questions of staff.
I don't either.
I'd just like to clarify, John, so there's an exception for the size or the overall square footage of signage,
Correct.
which you were sort of pointing out. The one big sign is already going above the square footage allowed, but then there's other signs.
Correct. Yes. I missed that in the recommendation part. The total square footage of what is allowed by the anchor tenant, total square footage is less than what they have proposed.
93.75 is the overall total on the building,
Correct.
and we have
I think the 230 or so
yeah.
from their total square footage.
Okay.
It's part of their. I know it's part of their total square footage is part of their package there. I don't remember which page it's on.
Okay, right, and then
It's up on the screen.
so it's exception for size or amount of signage, and then there's an exception based on the content
Correct.
of the burgers and chicken
Correct.
signs. Yeah. Okay, great. All right. Well, if there's no other questions, Lynn, do you have any other questions for staff, or you're looking at this for the first time, perhaps?
I did see it in person.
You did, yes. Okay.
And the one pole sign that is near the tree on the corner, there was a sign there. It's the exact same size. It's just the Barlow sign used to be there, and they replaced.
There was a vertical sign. I remember the monument sign there.
It was the monument sign
Yeah,
that was
the monument
there.
sign, yeah.
Yeah, and that was actually on page 23 of 46 in the initial Barlow signage package.
Correct.
Right. So that's
Yeah.
detail A1.
Yeah.
So that's gone.
Correct. So they did remove that, but
So is that allowable? And if that's I'm not sure if that was a question of the staff or not. So that's where I'm a little bit maybe possibly jumping the gun here.
I would have to double check on that.
Well, yeah, and if I'm not mistaken, that monument sign was for the whole Barlow, not for the tenant at the corner. So now they've taken that away and they've put a pole sign for the tenant right there, which seems like somehow that has to factor into the square footage allowed or the consideration of the overall package, I would think.
Correct. Yeah.
So I guess we could, or maybe the applicant could help tell us what they know about that. But do you have any question, Lynn, for staff at the moment, or?
Not at the moment.
Okay. So why don't we go ahead and I guess Michael, you could give a little presentation on your sign package to us today.
Perfect, you bet. Michael Birch, Scott AG, we are the signage designer and for the Barlow, Low these many years. Several of you were part of an extensive series of meetings over 2 different periods. Early in the development of the Barlow to develop this master sign program. The intent of the master sign program for the Barlow has always been to bring color and character to the Barlow, bring life to some of the building. You know, the buildings are there's a uniform section of the Barlow, and there is the more historic building section of the Barlow. We've tried to tie all those pieces together. At the time that we were putting the master sign program together, we envisioned larger signage on larger tenants, larger buildings. We really prescribed the location of signage for tenants that were a bit smaller in some of the newer buildings. And I think that we've really delivered over the years working with Barney and his team out there, that the signage is a real attractive element of the Barlow and brings real character. There's a variety, but at the same time, it's not a free-for-all. One thing I wanted to share just in terms of this tenancy, the Cock Robin restaurant, I don't know if you all are aware, this is a burger. This is really a mid-century classic burger chain from the Midwest, where Barney grew up. When that chain was closing, Barney brought this brand, bought the brand literally as a concept for a restaurant at the Barlow, and brought all of this great mid-century advertising art to us and said, you know, this is going to be, we really want to do a classic burger concept, burger and shake concept. I think Jared's on. Also, we're doing it, the menu you guys will see, and not that we're talking about the menu today, it's going to be updated to meet sort of Sebastopol tastes. But the idea is that this is a really great sort of mid-century burger experience, burger and shake experience, and we brought all of this, you know, cool branding that's a really unique new thing for the Barlow. Certainly, I know there's a few other sort of vintage elements to Sebastopol, different places, but that is the basis of the name and the artwork itself. In terms of how we considered or looked at the project in terms of whether it was considered a major tenant or an anchor tenant, there is a let me get to the right spot. There is almost a 2,000 square foot improved patio at the northeast corner of the project, as you guys may remember from Seismic. It's enclosed. It's where a huge part of the seating is. We're looking at this as a 6,500 square foot space in terms of the number of people, a number of folks who might be dining there, indoor, outdoor spaces, summertime, doors up, everything open. I know the footprint falls just below 5,000 square feet. That was the cutoff line in our signage, in our master sign program, for what a major tenant and what an anchor tenant was. Under an anchor tenancy, we have all the allowances that we need within the signage guidelines, and not that I want to put too fine a point on whether or not we add the patio to get there. I think that the prominence of this space, I think the real size and scale of this space, the importance of this space to downtown Sebastopol, and the Barlow being at the corner of Morris and Sebastopol as you enter town, is really going to be, you know, it talks about why some additional signage and some additional branding and some interest is really, I think, merited in terms of taking a look at the sign exception. So we proposed the signage. We proposed the signage as though we were an anchor tenant, and that we were actually within the total allowed. But we can talk about that a little bit more. That's technical, but I think that it also plays into how the space works. Signage is, the way the signage is illuminated throughout is external fixtures for the most part. There is, I don't believe there's any internal illumination in the program. We've got, again, classic advertising art, these beautiful sort of mid-century colors that really light up the corrugated metal building and awnings and canopies. We think it's a really nice enhancement to the building. And, you know, love the idea of the robin welcoming people as they come into town. So maintained the required building address numbers. We just left those on there just so that folks would be aware. And again, I think that as an anchor tenant, we're well within. We wouldn't be sitting talking about the exception. As a major tenant, we are just over. And I think that, again, based on the prominence, it would be great if you know, we were allowed this little bit of extra square footage to enhance the project. As far as the pole sign goes, we looked at that as a 1-for-1 swap out. We can certainly file the permit to do that. I think we were so focused on the building in this piece that we didn't get that into this package, but we looked at that more or less as a 1-for-1, and probably by rule should be making an application for that sign as well. And I'm open to questions, and we can certainly talk with staff and
Okay.
see where you guys want to go with this.
Okay, thank you, Michael. I'm sure there'll be questions for you. I'll just start with the sort of the obvious one is why are the signs installed before this board got to review and hopefully approve them?
Yeah, I think you're going to see an opening day there in the next 2 weeks, and we have been working through the design for a number of months, and we've been working with staff and getting the application in. I know it took a couple of turns to get the package to a meeting, and I think ownership gave us the green light to go ahead to be open because there was just no way to build the sign package in the 2 weeks that we would have from now until then. I think there's also a high level of confidence based on the fact that we were anticipating this being reviewed as an anchor tenant versus a major tenant, that there would not be any issues that would come before the board, and we would land in a space where we would just be able to pull our permits kind of in. Well, actually, we probably would have been able to pull the permits about a month before the signs were installed. So it's, you know, I'm going to give the I'm going to give the sincere apology, but the realistic approach that these signs will likely be guiding folks to a restaurant that's open within a week or two, and we ran out of time to get all the steps in order. So with respect, hoping, you know, that we can get there. And again, we had the sense that we were operating under a different classification within the Barlow Zone sign guidelines, and that there was not going to be any issue.
So if you've been talking to staff about this already, but there's no mention in our report from staff about that distinction, which seems like a pretty important one. So
yeah, I didn't know about it until I had made we had made the application, as you can see here on this page. And maybe I have the wrong, Debbie, do I have the wrong package here? Because our package read anchor tenant, I believe.
Sorry, I couldn't get off of mute. I think you had, I think the original, I think we revised it, Michael, and
Your submission says major tenant.
Okay.
This says major tenant, a tenant with over 5,000 square feet of
I'm sorry,
leasable
and
area.
I have those backwards. This is right. The major tenant is the larger tenant versus the anchor tenant. The
Right.
anchor tenant, smaller tenant. I'm tongue tying my own tongue. So we submitted with the major tenant as major tenant, and I did not look until I saw the staff report 2 days ago or a day ago. I was not aware that we were considered as an anchor versus a major. So
Okay, so
we did not have that dialogue with staff.
okay, so we have a disconnect here. What you're bringing forward as an applicant and what staff is reviewing based on the Barlow sign program. Seems like to me.
Yeah, so it from I think staff's perspective, there was two programs that were submitted. One came in, and then a revision came in, and during that time there was likely an oversight of the major and anchor tenant signage that should have been caught
Okay,
a while ago. So I will own up to that mistake. So
you're busy. I
yeah,
understand.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that I guess that's so we're reviewing. If we review it as shown here in the packet, major tenant, then the square footage becomes not an issue. Maybe the verbiage still does, but
Correct. And I think when we were going through it again, what we have on file for that building is less than that 5,000 square foot. And, if that patio area is included, then we wouldn't be having a discussion today.
Mhm.
So it's
Mhm.
really, the planning department doesn't really handle what building square footage is listed as. So if it's, I did reach out to the building department to see what they had on file, because I know seismic was there previously. So we wanted to make sure that, if this was either a mistake on what we had on file as far as square footage, we could have rectified that sooner, but they had roughly the same 4,000 square foot. So if that outdoor patio space is to be considered as part of the building square footage, then they would kick into that next category
right.
up.
Okay.
But I'm not sure, building is really the one that justifies that building
Well,
square footage.
occupancy, but in some sense, I think sort of intuitively, you could say the space can hold that many more people with the exterior space. So in that sense, it makes some sense. But,
Sure. Yeah, no, I agree. It's just what we have on file without having, any sort of formal, yes, that should be counted towards the building square footage.
So I just to be clear on kind of process here, Michael mentioned a number of meetings or submissions, whatever, to staff. And I know that stuff can take a while and get something on the agenda, but it still seems it's like there's some missing pieces. Like, it's funny. It's strange to me that didn't get cleared up, but I guess just somehow is a disconnect between the two parties. So do we as a board just say, okay, that happened, whatever, but we're reviewing this proposal for a major tenant today? Is that how we should handle it?
Can I jump in here?
Yes, please.
Thanks. John, is there precedent for other businesses in the Barlow being allowed to consider exterior space as part of their interior square footage or building square footage?
I have not run into that in the time that I've been here, so
I'd imagine not. I mean, that'd be like a very atypical interpretation of square footage.
Yeah, I think if we think of what's in the Barlow, that's this seems, it is more atypical. The bigger buildings don't necessarily have the public facing outdoor space like this one does.
Blue Ridge, I think, is the only one.
Region,
and
Crooked Goat does. Yep.
with if you don't mind, the patio is closed on the parking side and the front edge, and the front entry is off of Morris, and so the patio also has permanent canopy structures over it. It's different than almost anything. I mean, I don't know. I'm thinking of the
Crooked Goat is very similar.
Yeah, the deck at Wood. Yeah,
the deck at Woodford is not covered.
It's not covered. So, but it's probably one of the most making a pitch. It's probably the most improved patio there. The rest is sort of done with temporary fence and canopy, umbrellas, and that sort of thing. But in any case, it is a closed space. It is, well, I would say also Region has a pretty well developed deck out the back side, out the north or the east side as well. So in any case, it's very common within the Barlow. I don't know that anyone has needed to or asked to consider any of, I didn't do any of those other sign permits. I think those were done by those signage vendors. We signed off on them. But I don't know that anyone has made taken the effort to use the square footage in terms of influencing the signage allowance. So.
Okay. Yeah. So so this is, it feels like it's a new proposal. It's setting a new precedent in terms of what we've seen at the Barlow so far, but you're making a argument that the stature of this building or the location, et cetera, is worthy of that. It seems like to me.
That's the objective.
Right. Okay. Well, maybe we can sort of leave that for a second and ask any other questions to the applicant. Carrie?
Yeah, sure. How is the use of burgers and chicken not considered a product offering? And if that's not allowed in the original signage proposal, why? How is that construed? Represented?
Yeah, no, we were aware of that, and I guess what our interest is making certain that in the case of a brand that is not immediately but folks are not aware of what the offering is here, that there was a clear indication of that this is a burger joint, right? You have Seismic Brewing, you have different groups that generally have an understanding, a name that's clear. We wanted to be certain to incorporate the offering into the brand into the signage. So that was the basic reason, was just to make sure that we knew that the thousands of trips by every day knew that Cock Robin was a burger, and sort of a quick serve offering that included burgers and chicken. So.
And is there any concern that other tenants in the Barlow will want to replicate that? Because there's many I can think of that don't, tell you what they are or what they serve.
There are a handful of tenants that have, I think, a slightly smaller indication of what they do on the exterior. There are also, I think, a lot of folks that are on McKinley, because the majority of the tenants, I mean, we have very, very few outward facing tenants. We have, basically Community Market, just toward downtown here. We have this space. We have the tail end of Crooked Goat, and there's just a handful that are on any kind of a, certainly Sebastopol Road, and then Morris. And then when you're on McKinley, once you're on McKinley, you're moving to me at almost the speed of pedestrian, right? So I'm not sure that outside of the scale of signage that we've worked through I'm going to say mostly focused on McKinley and some of the cross streets to create kind of a pedestrian, just slightly larger out of scale. I don't know that we're going to have a lot of it. If we have this come up, I suspect that we would come back and maybe take a third run in 12 years through possibly adding it to the master sign program and having some kind of, controls around it.
Okay, thank you for that. Carrie, any other questions?
The 1-for-1 swap out on a monument sign for the new branded Cock Robin sign is that through an application eligible through planning? Or I didn't understand what.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's what should be done, and I don't believe it was done.
Yeah, so replacement signs that are like for like, size wise, if the branding is, a little bit different, can be done at a staff level.
But not changing the name of going from the Barlow to a tenant name feels like a pretty significant change. That would happen at the staff level.
Yeah, how can you?
Can I get my question answered, please?
Yeah, just a second, Lynn.
Yeah, I can certainly look into that a little bit more. I'm trying to remember that sign. If there was it just advertising things?
The
in
Barlow.
No, it just said Barlow
just said the Barlow.
Marketplace. Yeah.
Okay.
Nothing, no specific tenant names or.
Okay, so then, yeah, I don't know if we would be able to administer that at a staff level because that's almost a change to the program itself.
And but to your first comment, if it was, but it didn't come to staff as a change.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
I'd be happy to make application for that sign.
Okay, Carrie, you want to continue? If any other questions? Okay. Melissa, did you have any other questions for our applicant?
I don't have any questions for the applicant. No.
Okay. Lynn, any questions for the applicant? No? All right. We can open it up to public comment then, if there's anybody in the public who'd like to speak about this item. There's nobody in the audience, but there's a couple on Zoom. I see a hand raised. Would you like to call on someone there?
You hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yep, go ahead.
Well, I'd just like to mention that the Barlow, as much as I would love to be able to go down there, I unable to. I want to stay alive and healthy because of the magnetic fields and the radiation that bounces off of the corrugated metal walls that got smart meters throughout this town and the
So,
Barlow.
Linda, this item on the agenda is for a sign at a particular building. Are you addressing that agenda item?
Am I addressing, by the way, give me a little bit more time now that I've been interrupted. So what did you say?
The agenda item is about a sign on a building. Is that, so if you have a comment about that, please go ahead.
Yeah, signage. So again, the signage here is sort of irrelevant into the health hazard that the whole Barlow in this town has, in the cancer rates and the health consequences of the magnetic fields that we are all being increasingly exposed to, and we're playing Russian roulette every time with our cell phones and the Barlow in particular, because the corrugated metal walls, the radio frequency from the cell phones and smart meters that bounces off, and it amplifies the radio frequency and the radiation that we are exposed to, like on the patios and in the
You have
buildings
30
too.
seconds.
Well, anyway, this is a huge thing that needs to be addressed. The levels of radiation in this town, particularly like the Barlow, and also you need to know where the cell towers are. There are 4 of them nearby and on top of the theater, and they are health hazards, and they're causing this cancer. We're making ourselves one big cancer cluster.
2 minutes are up. Thanks, Linda.
All right, thank you for that. Anyone else on Zoom who would like to make a comment about this item? There's a couple people on there, I guess, are part of the applicant team. All right, seeing none, then we'll take the item to the board for deliberation. Anybody, who would like to start us off? Melissa, would you like to jump in?
Sure. I'm just a little flabbergasted, frankly, by this application, that the person who authored the original requirements and plan for the Barlow couldn't keep to those requirements, and then went ahead and installed these before getting approval. Is just frankly beyond the pale. I do not think that the chickens and burgers signs are consistent with anything else in the Barlow. I did a little walk through the Barlow, and nobody else has a sign that is quite so overt about the offerings. The logo signage is adorable and colorful and fun and cheeky, and that should be allowed. It is really a great addition. The scale is way out of proportion to the building, and so an oversized application just feels really inappropriate and kind of not in keeping with the scale of other signage in the Barlow. So I don't see a strong reason to approve an extension or to the signage size. Also, and I know this is not before us today, the entry sign, monument sign to the development needs to remain the Barlow. The Barlow is a destination. Sebastopol is a destination in the Bay Area. It is not the Cock Robin development, it is the Barlow. So it can't be a single tenant sign. So when that comes before us again, I will also not be supportive of that sign.
Thank you, Melissa.
Yeah.
Thanks. Gary?
Sure. I echo what my fellow board member had to say. We've been on the board looking at a lot of signage for the Barlow for a long time, specifically at the entry. Part of it's been a bit of a push and pull in regards to trying to create an identity for the Barlow and to create signage for the Barlow, and to see actually the monument sign removed from the Barlow and then being replaced, for a personal restaurant that again is then owned by the Barlow. It just doesn't seem consistent for, again, the application or the applicants and all the other tenants that remain in the Barlow. So for me, it's just not consistent. And I would also agree that I find it a denial for an exception.
Thank you, Carrie. Lynn?
Well, I too am taken back by this application and what they've put on the building. That first of all, I think the signage is just out of character with the line of the building, the kind of building it is, and the neighborhood, the surrounding neighborhood. And that's part of the criteria that we are to evaluate when we look at signs, is how it fits in. This one just doesn't. The signs are too massive for the space that they have. They're dominant. They don't fit very well. All the signs, I'd say, are like that. That I think it's really far-fetched as far as the square footage of the building to call that big patio part of the building, part of the square footage. It just seems, it's not a building, it's a patio. It doesn't have windows, it doesn't have doors. doesn't have heat. I mean, it's just something, it's not even attached. So, you know, that's way too much of a stretch. And lastly, the removal of the monument sign that had Barlow on it and replacing it with an advertising sign is a real step down. And where they put it, I think, is kind of an affront to the community when you put a sign that I'd say is out of place and create a pole sign there and put it right in front of a bunya tree that has got significance in this town. I think someone is just out of step with things. And so I am not in favor of much of any part of this sign program.
Thank you, Lynn. I don't think I have anything to add. I think it's just if this had come to us before signage was on the building, I mean, I was prepared before I saw it up there. I was prepared to suggest we remove the burgers and chicken and we reduce the main sign on the Morris Street facade to get within the square footage, which would be a more appropriate size, as people are saying, and not do the pole sign, which we just found out about, basically. But then we'd have, I think, a pretty good application and a more appropriate application. But that's not what we have, and the signs are already on the building. So I think we have to just ignore that and determine, rule based on what we're seeing here in the application, as far as I can see. So, John, would you agree with that? Any comments on that part of it?
No, I think you're correct there.
Okay.
I think the signage going up on the building is
It's not our problem.
Really it's not within the.
Yeah.
It's just a risk.
Right. Exactly.
Starting construction after the appeal period has not
Right.
expired. So.
Right. Okay. Any other last comments from the board before we get a motion? I think everyone was pretty clear. Who would like to put forward a motion? Melissa, would you like to fashion a motion for us?
Sure. I'll move to deny the application.
Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay. Any further discussion? Go and take a vote.
And then as far as the denial goes, do you want to direct staff to make the findings for denial? Or do you want to have this come back to next month's meeting for the findings for denial?
No, I think it's pretty clear what people put forward, and
okay.
So I think I would say have staff do it, so we're not pushing it out another month. Clearly, time is of the essence here.
Okay. And Melissa, are you fine with that modification?
Happy with that. Thank you.
And who seconded? Are you fine with that modification?
Yes.
Okay. So Board Member Dealer,
Aye.
Board Member Bush,
Aye.
and Vice Chair Hanley,
Aye.
and Chair Langberg.
Aye.
All right, so that motion passes with 4 ayes and 2 absence. Michael, there is a 7-day appeal period. Should you feel that you guys want to make an appeal for that, that does need to come to the planning department no later than, what's the date? October 2nd? October 1st by 5 p.m.
Perfect. We will come up with a plan and you'll see an appeal, or we will comply, or perhaps in the appeal come back with some modification and see where we are.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you for your time and all your materials. Thanks for your time.
You got it. Thanks all.
Okay. So we're moving on to our other agenda item, which is a review of the sign ordinance in general.
Yes. So this is, I don't really have a formal staff report for this, but it's more of just a informational item to start discussing the sign ordinance. I did meet with Lynn last week, and we went over some of his recommendations for the sign ordinance itself. That is part of the package tonight, and he also did provide some images of, possible proposed signage around town. That's obviously, if you look at them, a lot different than what we see around town. And is that necessarily a bad thing, or is that something that we want to encourage? So, with that, Lynn, I don't know if you want to add anything more than kind of what's in your letter here. And if not, then happy just to kind of open it up to the board to discuss. And there's no formal action today. So it's just, unless you guys want to direct staff to come back with, something substantial in the future.
Lynn, would you like to say anything more than your letter that was part of the packet?
It's just generally that, I'm one of the old timers around here, and the downtown area of Sebastopol used to be vibrant with big, beautiful signs. They were, even had a lot of signs that had moving parts in it, like the Sebastopol Saloon and Pinecone Restaurant had signs that moved. Anyway, about 60 years ago, the sign ordinance came into effect, and it became the way to do things is to make them very small, very confined. And our sign ordinance starts out with, make things attractive, beautiful, artistic kind of guidelines, and saying that's what we're hoping for. But as I pointed out in the letter, that's really unrealistic for all the tightness of the program. And I think that we would find our Main Street, at least, and many of the other buildings around town to be much more attractive with big signs. Another thing is, we go through a lot of small business people in this town. Some last fairly long and most don't. And signage is a really important thing for people to recognize the existence of a building, the existence of the business in the building. And that is just the start. I know the shopkeeper has to take over from there, but you can't even take over until you have customers who know where you're at. And there's lots of examples that I can give you around town that I've seen over the years. And so I've put together a list of things that I think would really open up signage and make it better for the shopkeepers, the community, and more attractive. So that's the essence. That's why I'm proposing these changes.
Okay, thank you. Would anybody like to weigh in on what Lynn has proposed or our sign ordinance in general?
Lars, maybe I can give you a little color. This came out of our meeting, our last meeting. And we had, I think, 3 different signage applications come through, one of which the board felt was probably shouldn't have needed to come through, the one for Campanella, which was approved, and that signage size and location probably should have been a by right sign. And then we also had a sign come through from Hot Monk, which was a replacement of the interiorly illuminated sign with a new digital sign. And there's nothing in our ordinance that prohibits a like for like in that replacement scenario. And we were concerned about other analog interior illuminated signs like the one at Pacific Market, for example, the one up high, being replaced with digital signage, and what digital signage could do to the character of Sebastopol, and feeling like we needed some protections in the signage ordinance against those kinds of signs, but also expanding some of the signage opportunities for local businesses, as Lynn is describing, to make sure that they don't have to come to us for things that probably should be more reasonable.
Thanks for that background. That's helpful. Yeah. Gary, any thoughts?
Yeah, that's good point. I kept reading neon signs. I haven't seen many neon signs kind of put out there in a while, but yeah, that digitization in our age is something we should start to look at. Again, going back to Campanella and seeing a thin, rather sleek profile for a sign being directional in both north, south, or east, west, for its wayfinding patrons. It should be, I think, again, as brought up, considered one, a square footage of just one sign, not two faces. So that seems fair. It's a good. I'm glad we're bringing this up because there were a number of other issues within the signage ordinance that we've talked about for quite a long time. One of them being sandwich boards, and having number sandwich boards strewn throughout our town without any sense of protection for the public safety when it comes to sidewalks or vision triangles from vehicular egress, that sort of thing. So these are things, that I think makes a town even more cluttered personally. So signage, and maybe bigger signage, has a sense of one thing that kind of kept coming back to me on bigger signage was this idea of pedestrian scale, right? We don't need bigger signs because you don't need to see it from your car. You want to be able to see it from your feet on the ground. And I think that that's an important aspect that we as a town could look at from our signage, ordinance, and looking at the idea of creating more monument signs. And I know they're not easy to find and people don't want to stop to read them and that sort of thing. But if you're on foot and there's a good wayfinding signage program that the city has, I know for a while has entertained, but could find a sense of pedestrian value instead of this vehicular value that we've been in some way struggling. We're a crossroads town. We know that. We're very much on the brink of having cars whiz by us at every stage. And to be seen is important. I'm a lucky guy because my business, a lot of cars see it. And we don't have an exceptionally large sign. It's big, but it's not even near the exception, that's needed for, our building size. So I keep wondering, if we were to start to really think about our signage and the artistic values that want to come with it, it comes back to a brand. It comes back to a business that really wants to invest in their signage. That's another thing, is it costs a lot of money to make a sign. And seeing vinyl signs, okay. So I wondered, what are these banners? What are these signs? What are all these vinyl letters that kind of go up? And what are their expiration dates? Because they start to fade. They become, as one board member once said, it's kind of a vinyl sign is a going out of business sale. And I don't really see it that way, but in a lot of sense, you need to invest in your brand and to have a good sign maker put together a good sign, and having a consistent sign package really enhances the brand. We just saw a brand that came before us, now how that meets the value of scale and people and place and architectural significance. That's all, it's all why we're here. So not to be on any, rant here, but I think it comes back to a sense of scale and pedestrian value. And that's what I wanted to say. So.
Thank you. In looking through the ordinance again, as it was sent to us, it seems like there are possibilities to do more unique signs, and that even have different lighting or even sound or some of that. Like there is something in the ordinance that does. It's not just sort of one size fits all and that's it and go away. There's at least the possibility to apply for exceptions. So I think that's important, but it seems like what you're proposing, Len, and what we're talking about here is what could we expand what is allowed without a design review board approval. And I think that's fine, but I like what you're saying, Carrie, like there should be, in a way, to me, some consistency still. So it's not, we don't have kind of just a hodgepodge feeling out there, or there's, to avoid sign clutter. If every storefront has a bigger sign, are we going to have just too much signage, or they start to compete with each other in a way? So I'd be a little wary of that side. Just making it bigger is not necessarily going to make it better without a good intent.
We just saw a submission where that did not work.
Right. So the scale, the building related to the sign is so critical. And I think like that example, I think if it was just 25% smaller, it would be a pretty nice, colorful, interesting piece on that nice profile elevation. That's really important. Well, so I guess, Lynn has put forward some specific ideas. We could go through those if people have comments on those. Or we can, or how do we give any feedback to staff on how to move forward? Go ahead, Melissa.
I wonder if it's possible for staff to provide a Word document for the ordinance to us that's editable and we can track changes, and each one of the board members could actually go in and edit the parts and pieces of the ordinance that we'd like to see changed, and then we can compile those into one master. And that way, because I know staff has also been directed by city manager and city council to not take on any projects that are not revenue generating. And sadly, the signage ordinance revisions are not revenue generating. So if the board could make a first pass at revisions that we'd like to see changed. I mean, I think we're talking about a half dozen things that we'll probably want to get edited. That might be kind of a good first pass to get the planning team something to work with.
Yes, so we can directly convert, which is what we did for today's package, the ordinance to a Word doc that we can send out to you guys. And then trying to think of the easiest way possible, and maybe just sending it out to an individual, them sending it back, and then we just kind of go down the list. Because I don't want to violate any potential. Okay.
I mean, if we each made changes and brought our changes to a future board meeting, could we then discuss it at a future board meeting?
Yeah, as long as it's agendized, then we can do that.
Or the other way of sort of in the protocol to do that is a subcommittee. So if two people are working on it, right, then it's not a Brown Act issue, and it's a subcommittee idea.
You can come up here.
Sorry, I'm not following what you're saying there. It might, I don't know if you want to
come on
up into one of these microphones and don't be shy.
Hi, Jane Riley. I'm the interim community development director. And I'm suggesting if you want to see it again and you've all got changes that you want to see, that you deny it without prejudice, meaning that it can come back without a waiting period. And so as soon as the applicant is ready, they can bring it back with the changes and you can reconsider it again.
This is just, sorry, we moved on from the Barlow signage one. This is their own modifications to the sign ordinance as a board.
So it's come forward just as a kind of informational, what do you guys think about the sign ordinance thing?
Yeah.
I didn't know that was happening. It's about time. Oh, did I say that?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. And your suggestion, John, is?
Well, so Melissa put forward this idea that if we all get the Word doc separately, we can each make some suggestions or edits, and then it can be compiled into a draft new sign ordinance, let's say. That's what she's suggesting, and John was concerned about the...
I'm concerned as well.
Yeah.
That's a serial meeting. Has that Word doc been made available?
It hasn't been, no,
Okay.
not yet.
Just
But this is the
PDF.
first time we're,
Then I would not do that.
okay.
So then I suggested a subcommittee, right?
I
'Cause-
think you can do
which is
that.
a proper hierarchy of,
Right.
right,
Yeah.
of
Two-
two.
two.
Yeah, right.
Good suggestion. I'm glad we got back around to that.
Yeah. Thanks, Jane.
Thank you, Jane. Thanks a lot, Jane. Okay, well, so,
Yeah, I mean, some of the things I thought I would want to talk about would non-conforming signs, for example, abandoned signs and miscellaneous signs. And what do some of those things mean in particular, right? How it really applies to the current ordinance.
and then there was a section on memorial signs. I was very curious what that's about.
In the exempted section?
It's in, yes, exempted signs, memorial signs subject to size limitations and a site visibility analysis. So that's a memorial for like the little cross on the side of the road when someone dies in a car. Like what's that for?
It could be like a memorial to like a building or something that's happened at that location.
Or we have this
Like a
voting
historic.
suffragette one that was installed in the plaza recently.
Correct.
Fairly recently.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Got
So
it.
that would be, I would consider that a memorial
Okay.
sign.
Got it. Okay. So yeah, there's some work to be done on this. So would the board like the idea of a subcommittee putting a little time in so our staff doesn't have to spend their valuable hours at this? Lynn, would you like to be part of that subcommittee?
Oh, yes.
And Melissa, would you like to be part of that subcommittee?
I would not, but thank you for the offer.
Okay, well, we need
I will
one of
happily
them.
send my ideas on, though,
Okay,
to the subcommittee when it's formed.
Carrie?
I will also need to pass. Sorry.
Okay,
I think Christine was actually pretty passionate about the signage ordinance, though. And actually, she was really excited about us agendizing this item. So maybe we voluntold her
We
to.
can- since she's not here, we can volunteer her. That's great. Is that what you just said?
Yeah.
Does that sound like?
Just fine.
Okay, so we
Is that a
can-
second?
we can get her permission or ask her if she'd like to do that, but I think that'd be great if, and it doesn't have to, there's no timeline if you guys do it in a month or you do it in 2 months or whatever, come back to us and we can still, the others on the board can still cogitate and be ready with our suggestions too, or pass them along, I guess, if Jane's not
What is
watching.
the appropriate way to do that without
Pass-
violating
Pass
something?
them to me.
Yes, right.
Okay,
it-
send them
it
to John.
And
Okay.
John passes them on to the subcommittee.
Correct.
Right.
Okay,
Yeah.
great.
So we sort of did that with the ODS standards, if I remember right.
Yep.
Right. We all got a big doc. We got to make our revisions and then send those.
Correct.
And then you were able to implement them.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I would just kind of request once the subcommittee at least meet with staff once to go over kind of the document that they have
That's a good idea.
before it comes to, I would like to see it before it comes to the design review board. So everything is, you
No,
know,
that may, or I would even, you could say you'd have one meeting to kick off the subcommittee and one to see
Before
what
the
you've
DRB
come up with
meeting.
before it comes back.
sure.
That would be,
Yeah.
I think would be valuable.
Yeah.
Okay. So do we memorialize this with a motion to form a subcommittee? I don't know that, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah.
You'd have, so I would open it for public comment first before you
Right.
make a motion.
Thank you.
Yep.
Is there anybody in the public who would like to weigh in on our sign ordinance discussion? Mariah, yes, please come up.
Well, let me pull something up real quick.
Is your microphone on there?
Yeah, I just need to
Okay.
get closer to it.
Okay, thanks.
This item was brought to my attention a couple of days ago. I had been busy and just this morning was able to get it out to the Downtown Association. And as of this morning, I'm going to just read you a list of which businesses are in support of adjusting the ordinance to add, a little wiggle room for more artistic, creative signage within reason, of course. The businesses that I spoke to today in favor: Silk Moon, Toy Works, Dressers, Second Chance Bookstore, Ramen Gajin, Lucky Roots, Sebastopol Cookie Company, Rosemary's Garden, Spinning Threads, Lunchbox, Retrograde, Luminarium, Hot Monk, Tomby, Center for the Arts, not a business, but owns a business, and the livery. And Goldfinch just texted me as I was sitting here. So strong support from the business community for this one. Just wanted to be here to speak for them.
I mean, it almost makes sense to me to have a community member on the subcommittee.
I'd be up for it.
I think if you guys are up for that, I think that'd be so helpful.
Okay, I'd be happy to. And I did get 10 signatures in a couple of hours. So
Well,
if you want
and the
more,
list,
something more formal,
the
let me
list
know.
you have is, I mean, that's like everybody downtown almost. So.
Pretty much. That was a 2-hour job too, so got it done. Anyway, okay, so let me know moving forward how I can be involved.
Very good.
Cool.
Thank
And
you
I
so
can't
much.
stay, but thank you.
Thanks. And then it looks like we have one comment on Zoom, if I'm not mistaken.
Linda, you can unmute.
You hear me? You hear me?
Yes, we can.
You hear me?
Yes, we can, Linda.
Okay. Well, anyway, well, that's heartening. That's exactly the kind of thing that needs to be done. You know, community involvement from like some of the rest of us having input into this decision making. Also, I'd like to introduce myself and say hello to Jane Riley and the apparently new interim community development coordinator. And I'm Linda, EMF Linda. I'm electrosensitive, as a growing number of people are in this town, and I am very interested in community development. I urge you to come up here to the Redwood Marketplace and then check out the 5-6 empty, vacant commercial spaces that we've had for over 2 years, largely because of the RV village here, which was a disaster. And the whole thing continues to be economic disaster, lack of revenue from these spaces that apparently decision makers are somehow unable to come over and look at it and talk about it and interview the owners of the businesses.
Linda,
But
if we can-
anyway, a signage thing.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. So anyway, signage. There was Mark Sells, one of the late owners of the hardware store, which
30
is across
seconds.
on Gravenstein. Anyway, he came up with an idea. He wanted a real-time radiation level sign, and we need to start recognizing the EMF, the electromagnetic fields that we are increasingly being cooked by and killed by. So signs for the levels of radiation. It would be great if we had some Wi-Fi free businesses where people could go in and seek
2 minutes are
sanctuary
up.
from.
Thanks, Linda.
Thank you, Linda. So bringing it back to the board, who would like to make a motion to form a subcommittee? Okay, then I'll do it. I will move to create a subcommittee made up of Lynn and Christine and community member Mariah Volk. Is that her name, right? To review the sign ordinance as it currently stands. And we need an alternate. I will go ahead and be the alternate. Since no one else is up for that. So do I have a second?
I'll second the motion.
Any further discussion? Let's take a vote.
Okay, Board Member Diedler,
Aye.
Board Member Bush,
Aye.
Vice Chair Henley,
Hi.
and Chair Langberg.
Aye.
All right, so that motion passes 4 ayes and 2 absent.
Great. Thanks for bringing that forward, Lan. Appreciate that. Okay, so moving on to Planning Department update from John Jay.
Yes, just a few items today. We did final the Woodmark project on Bodega Avenue, so they are looking at having folks moved in there at the beginning of October, so within a few weeks here. There's still, we haven't been given a time frame on when phase 2 will start. So 48 units is what has been constructed and is going to be occupied. The remaining 36 units are still part of phase 2, which will come sometime in the future.
John?
Yep.
I understand there's been very few applicants to that project, and I wondered what the process was for them to expanding their potential renter pool beyond migrant farm workers.
I am not sure. The city is not involved with the application process with them, so I can reach out to them, but the city's not involved with approving or denying applications to that development. It is a private development, so.
But it's a deeded requirement for tenancy, right? So how would they change the tenancy requirement?
I'm not sure if they can, because the way that the application was reviewed and approved was under that requirement. So
And the big part of their financing,
correct, and
was
their
related
financing
to
was
that.
federal.
So,
yeah,
yeah, USDA financing.
correct.
So as I understand it, they have 3 tenants so far.
3?
3. Yeah.
Wow.
So we're going to have this great new housing project that's absolutely empty.
I think they'd have to look. I'm sure they are. Like, how do you define workforce housing in that? Within their funding, and
Yeah.
it could somehow figure out if they can open that up.
Okay. Yeah, if you have any questions, or you can reach out. Jane said you can reach out to her.
Thank you.
Great.
The Barlow Hotel is still under review of their project submission, so we are still moving forward with that one. No new updates from the Hotel Sebastopol. They're kind of waiting on the
Low interest.
interest rates to drop a little bit more. We did, I just sent out this afternoon to all of the boards and commissions, the public draft for the active transportation plan is available now for public comment and review. That will be closing at the end of November. Once those comments are gathered and put into the final document, they will be going to the Planning Commission for their Milestone 3 update, October 22nd, and then back to City Council for a draft review in November, and then a final review and adoption by the end of February 2025.
Sorry, I thought you said public comment was to the end of November,
Correct.
but it'll go to Planning Commission and Council before
As
that?
draft.
As a draft. Okay.
Yes. Yeah, both of them will be drafts.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And then because the final approval is through City Council. And the Caltrans Sustainable Transportation Grant, they're finalizing the public participation component of that. And we're going to be looking at also doing a milestone update for that project at the October 22nd Planning Commission meeting. So if you're interested in that, I would recommend you attend. And then we'll also be looking at doing a one of the first kind of stakeholder public outreach events for that project sometime in November. We're still finalizing date, time, and location for that, but my hope is to find some place within the downtown that has space to hold that type of event, because it makes sense to, have a project like that within the community that it's, going to be serving. The Canopy project still has their grading permits in review, and I believe they have, if they haven't already, by the end of this month, they'll be submitting their building permit applications. They did? Okay. So they did submit their building permit applications. The St. Vincent de Paul project, which is also on Gravenstein Highway North, they are still looking at submitting their foundation permits here within the next few weeks, trying to get in before that October 15th kind of cutoff period. And I think that's it.
What
Any
was
questions?
that cutoff period for?
The October 15th is the grading and kind of site maintenance for
did-
winter.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. The
It's
erosion
you-
controls and BMPs and
Right.
all of that kind
You
of
can
stuff.
still grade it after that, but you have a.
Correct. There's a
much
lot more involved in it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
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 And what about the search for the new community development
Community
director?
Development Director. From my understanding, they have made a offer to one of the candidates that they interviewed last month. And hopefully by the end of this year, we'll have a new person full time.
All right, great.
That's it.
Thank you. I'll just, as a liaison to the Public Art Committee, I'll just make the announcement that Ned Kahn's sculpture called the Sebastopol Spire has been installed adjacent to the laguna near the bridge. So we, our committee gets money through commercial buildings that don't want to do their own public art, can fund our committee, and we've done 3 commissions. Ned's was the first. 8 years ago that process started, and it, because of choosing Caltrans sites, it kept getting delayed and more expensive, and so the site changed and more than once, but now it has finally been installed. So two of the 3 are installed, and the third one, which we just awarded, could be installed even before the end of the year, potentially at the entry to the Joe Rodota Trail.
Yeah, so I'll give a kind of brief update on that. The site is going to be, Public Works is going to be preparing that site. We met with the artist and the chair of the Public Arts Committee, was it last week? I think it was, and gave direction to Eric Billings, the Public Works Assistant Superintendent, on what needs to be done. So the Parks Commission is just finalizing the paperwork portion of it, but they did give us the approval to start on the site work because of that October 15th.
Oh, yeah.
And its adjacency to the creek and
Right.
laguna and stuff like that. So they will be making the improvements on there so the art piece can come in, set down the concrete podium, and then the art piece on top of that.
Mhm.
So hopefully we'll have it done here pretty soon.
That's great. So yeah, this is a Bruce Johnson sculpture. I don't know if anyone familiar with him. He was a legend in our area who unfortunately passed away 2 years ago in an accident at his studio. But one of his 2 daughters, one is a landscape architect, so she has prepared a site plan and really thought this through with us to make a nice installation there, which is really great, and it's moving ahead quickly. So that's all I have. I think we can adjourn the meeting. Thanks, everyone.
Recording
Bye,
stopped.
Melissa.